At the moment of recording this, we are 9 days out from Nona the Ninth, which feels correct, but it feels absolutely bonkers to be able to say 9 days from Nona the Ninth, especially because I read Harrow when it came out back in 2020, so it's been like 2 years, and I really didn't think we would ever, number one, get 4 books, since I still have copies of the book that say the Locked Tomb trilogy, but the wait has been very long and very intense, so it's really cool that we're here. I was on the fence about recording this video because I really didn't, think anyone would want to watch a video of just me calling dibs on predictions, essentially. But I also didn't think that anybody would watch my recap, and I am absolutely blown away by the fact that people have, and people have left comments and subscribed to me and shared it with people and talked about it online. First of all, thank you. Thank you a lot. And so once that happened, I was like, okay, well, I guess people like hearing me talk for 2 hours, and this is not going to be close to 2 hours. So what the hell? Why not? I love these books, and I love being right about things. So, big disclaimer at the top. I am not claiming to be the definitive, expert of Locked Tomb theories. I'm not going to be pretending that I am, the brain here. Even if as I was reading I thought, oh, this theory is cool, other people have thought the same, and the evidence that I'm going to present was a crowdsourced effort of, over the last 2 years, people rereading these books and saying, guys, I saw this. And I don't want to undermine the collective effort that these have taken. So just please understand that even though I'm going to be saying I statements, I'm not centering myself in these. It's just easiest to talk in the first person, as we know from Harrow the Ninth. This video is going to contain more spoilers than my recap. It's going to contain spoilers for Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, As Yet Unsent, all of the Nona content that has been online so far, so that includes the poem that has been officially released, the preview of the first day, which was released on Amazon Prime Day, and also the leaked chapter of John 28. If that's something you don't want to involve yourself with before going into Nona, if you want to go in just totally blank, I'm really sorry, this video is not going to be accessible for you. Additionally, I'm going to put a little bit at the end about Alecto Predictions, and for Alecto Predictions, I'm going to be referencing information that Tamsin Moyer has given out at conventions, along with the singular paragraph excerpt she read back in June. So if you're especially looking for nothing to do with Alecto, then again, I'm sorry. I'm back in front of my conspiracy wall for this, which, trust me, I'm not going to give the layout of my apartment, but it is not easy for me to set up in front of this wall. But it's such a fun background, and I'm going to be popping on some more notes for it. I think it'll be funny that if I make even more Locked Tomb videos for any purpose, that I keep using this as a visual and it just keeps getting more and more out of hand, so we're going to be using it for this one as well. Alright, so the first theory that I want to go over is Alecto being the Earth's resurrection beast. Oh my, that felt so 2010 YouTuber, just the... First theory is that Alecto is the Earth's resurrection beast. So I feel like we're at the point where this is essentially confirmed canon, but I don't know, I still kind of want to go over the theory because I know it's not explicitly 100% there yet. It's just to borrow a Game of Thrones thing, it's basically the R plus L equals J. We're all kind of there, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. TV show fans do not interact. This all starts with the fact that John in chapter 2 of Harrow the Ninth is trying to explain resurrection beasts to Harrow, and his math is wrong. If you watched my recap video, you will know that I was endlessly confused about why this was wrong, and this is because, number one, I'm really bad at math, and number two, I was working on a crazy time crunch with my recap video. The whole thing came together in a week before editing, so I didn't have all the time in the world to sit down and figure this out. But it turns out it isn't that hard to figure out. 2 resurrection beasts are unaccounted for as John's recapping. And I believe that one of them is Alecto, and he just doesn't want to mention that fact. The reason why everybody is blank the first instead of associating them with their house name is because John thinks of everyone as Alecto's children. Think Mother Earth. And at this point, we know that the first house is planet Earth in the most post-apocalyptic sense possible. So everybody is Alecto's children. Everybody is Mother Earth's children. This visual is out of frame at the moment, but I do have up on the AL card that I used for the recap that during Teacher's Rant about like Alecto being a monster in Cannon House, he refers to her as a saltwater monster. And saltwater is associated with the tomb itself, but more literally, saltwater is associated with earth and life. And if she's a saltwater monster, it would make sense if she was the monster of the earth. It's confirmed that resurrection beasts can take humanoid forms, as discussed when they were going over number 4. She was a humanoid with a beautiful face, and I'm pretty sure Alecto is the same way, because we've also confirmed several times explicitly, both from John and Mercy, that Alecto is not human. Like, there is no ambiguity that she is something else in a human form. At the end of Harrow the Ninth, when everybody is plunged into the river, the stoma open up for John, and Purra comments that it's because they think he's an RB. And this makes sense if you consider the fact that John is connected to and shares power with a resurrection beast. Like, of course the stoma would open up for him if he's carrying that kind of power. Finally, in John 28, John is recounting to Harrow, please pay attention to this, it'll come back later. He's recounting to Harrow how you were so sick. We were trying to save you. But then he starts talking about mass evacuation. And then Harrow asks, is this the part where you hurt me? We know that for the resurrection, John was directly responsible for the death of everybody on Earth. There could have been people in the solar system. We haven't confirmed any sort of interstellar travel yet. We know that he's directly responsible for them with some sort of bomb that Wake mentions. But if we're talking about the first person, is this the part where you hurt me? It makes sense that the Earth is speaking through Harrow to John. Alecto is the Earth's RB. She is the Earth, and she's the monster that came after when John hurt her. Next up, Alecto is hiding in somebody close to Nona. So this one's a bit more of a recent one that I've been buying into since I reread all of my annotations in preparation for the recap. When Mercy Morn sees Gideon in Harrow's body with the gold eyes that are associated with Alecto, she automatically assumes that Alecto has woken up and is piloting Harrow's body, essentially confirming that this is something that Alecto is able to do, possibly because a resurrection beast is a huge revenant and revenants are able to possess bodies. Now, when Gideon is pulled out of the river right before she dies, she sees Alecto. But from the released content of Nona, we know that the people who pulled Nona out of the river are Cam/Pal and Purra. So where is Alecto? I personally think that she's hiding in somebody close to Nona. I know that a lot of people are going to automatically assume that she's in Nona, aka Harrow's body, but we will get to my prediction about who Nona is in a bit. I think that she's hiding in somebody close to Nona, kind of lying in wait. And because we're dealing with people like Purra, who was sharing a body with Gideon, and Cam and Pal, who are currently occupying the same body, they might not be aware there's another presence hiding inside of them and waiting to move. Alright, this one is more of a Harrow theory, but I think it's kind of important for a bunch of my Nona theories, and like, I will never shut up about it, so like, we're gonna talk about it. I think that Gideon is the body. Like, I don't think the body looks like Gideon. I think that the body is a representation of Gideon in the back of Harrow's mind for the 9 months where she's like not able to conceive of Gideon. Essentially, I don't think that Harrow ever hallucinated the body pre-lobotomy, and that the body is created as a way to hide Gideon's presence in the back of her mind, but also to explain away all of this time where her mind was occupied by Gideon and making Gideon's life hell and hating Gideon. And so the body only exists in Harrow the Ninth in the parts where Harrow's, hallucinating because she lobotomized herself. Starting with the simple stuff. The body follows Harrow at exactly 1/2 step behind her. The same way that Gideon follows Harrow in Cannon House, the same way Camilla follows Palamedes, and the same way that all Cavaliers are supposed to follow their necromancers. The body protects Harrow in the same way a Cavalier is supposed to protect a necromancer when they're not conscious or able to do so. The first time that Gideon tries to kill Harrow, Harrow wakes up from a dream after the body warns her to. And this is similar to the fact that when necromancers go into the river, their Cavaliers keep the lights on and protect their bodies when they're literally not able to tell what's going on. The only time that Harrow touches the body is when she kisses the body and begs her for more, and it makes Harrow suddenly really dizzy. And the only time that we ever see Harrow get dizzy or lightheaded is when she's confronted with something directly related to Gideon and she starts hemorrhaging. When Ortis and Harrow are finally talking in the river, he says point blank that he doesn't ever think she was actually mad. The body is described as the death of the Emperor, and yes, the Ninth House knows that if the rock were ever rolled away, the death of the Emperor would be unleashed. However, Gideon was created to be the death of the Emperor. She was quite literally conceived with the sole purpose of entering the tomb, waking up Alecto, and killing God. The body tells Harrow that she died twice. And yeah, Alecto would have died when the earth was first killed and then when she goes into the tomb. But at the same time, Gideon dies in Gideon when she falls onto the spiked fence, and she explicitly dies at the end of Harrow. Alright, this is where I go all the way down the rabbit hole. Harrow never sees, mentions, or thinks about the body as a hallucination when she is in the river. If you were to take out all of the chapters in the Mithraeum and instead only focus on the chapters in Cannon House, in Harrow the Ninth, you would not know that the body exists because it is never once mentioned. Now, a few people are going to point out the Parados. The first time that we see the body is in the Parados when Harrow and Ortis are talking about going to Cannon House. The body enters in the paint of a Ninth House nun right around the time that Ortis asks her, hey, have you ever thought of Gideon Nav as your Cavalier? However, I personally believe that this is the moment that the work is completed. This is the moment where the false reality is cemented, because that's the first time the body says, this isn't how it happened. This is the beginning of the false memory being created. And so I think it's kind of the changeover of the body, aka Gideon's presence, in the same space as Ortis, aka the false presence, trading off essentially. At the end of Harrow, Harrow enters the tomb and goes to sleep in the coffin, which is explicitly stated to have been where the body had lain. However, the text also says that this is a land that Harrow has never been before, and she has been inside of the tomb. And we know it's not where the body had lain because there's a two-hander and a copy of Frontline Titties of the Fifth, meaning it's where Gideon had lain. But if you believe, like I do, that the hallucination of the body is Gideon, then yeah, it is where the body had lain. And then as a side note, Gideon is pretty explicit about the fact that she wasn't always able to see out of Harrow's mind, but she was occasionally able to swim to the surface and have a look around. And I think that those are the moments when the body is visible and able to interact with Harrow, because it's when Gideon is closest to Harrow's consciousness. This one could be an Alecto one, possibly, but I still want to put it here because I think that Ianthe is going to attempt perfect Lyctorhood with Coronabeth as her Cavalier. So this kind of relates to a smaller sub-theory that I buy into. I believe that Coronabeth actually secretly trained to be the Cavalier of the Third House. And when I say secret, I mean not even Babs or their parents were aware of the fact that Coronabeth and Ianthe had agreed that Coronabeth was really the Cavalier of the Third. I posted about this theory back in January on the Locked Tomb subreddit without having read As Yet Unsent, and boy did I get roasted in the comments by people who were like, haven't you read As Yet Unsent? To which I was like, no, actually sorry. And then I did read As Yet Unsent, and I was like, okay, fair. In Gideon, Coronabeth is really, really, really good with a rapier. Like, she's able to hold off Gideon, and sure, Gideon is working at a bit of a disadvantage because she's not using her two-hander, and also she's like super freaked out by the deaths of Jean Marie and Isaac. But Coronabeth is able to fight, and she's able to fight well. In Harrow the Ninth, when Harrow encounters her, Coronabeth has actually stolen Gideon's rapier and is using it. And then in As Yet Unsent, she asks Judith point blank if she will take on Corona as her cavalier. I think that this is because Coronabeth has trained to be the cavalier the entire time. And as soon as Ianthe realized that achieving Lyctorhood would mean killing and causing harm to Coronabeth, she had to change gears super quickly and go after Babs instead, which would, add to Coronabeth being super hurt by the fact that Ianthe chose Babs instead. It's a weird codependent thing, but also the betrayal of we agreed I was the cavalier and she went with Babs instead. Ew. Back to the bigger theory at hand. I think that Ianthe is going to attempt perfect Lyctorhood with Coronabeth, and that's why she saved John from the river in the first place, because she was presented with a choice, John or Augustine, and she picks John because she's awful. But also, in the Mithraeum, in the big everything is coming out, everyone's talking to each other scene, Ianthe only leaves her hiding spot as soon as she realizes that there is a way to attempt and achieve Lyctorhood without your cavalier needing to die. And so I think the reason why she saves John is because she's going to blackmail him, coerce him, convince him that she needs to find out how to achieve perfect Lyctorhood, and that she is going to try and convince Coronabeth to do it the next time they meet. Alright, next up, we are getting Canon House history in Nona. We're getting a story that takes place in 5 days, and we're getting a story that takes place over 10,000 years. So I think that we are going to find out that Lyctorhood is bad, actually. Personally, I don't think that John was lying about Lyctorhood to ensure he would always be the most powerful lictor in the universe and get to reign as God, because if he has Lyctorhood with the resurrection beast, then it doesn't matter if everybody else is able to achieve Lyctorhood. He wins. He has the power of a dead planet on his side. So why was he lying in the first place? Personally, I think he did it to save everybody. We don't know a lot about what exactly perfect Lyctorhood looks like because Alecto isn't awake yet, so we don't know what the effects on her are, but Lyctorhood is referred to as a sin. It's referred to in monstrous terms. There's something deeply, deeply wrong with it based on teachers' account of what happened at Canon House, based on what we've seen about Canon House, and based on what we've heard John talk about. And it's also pointed out that Alecto sucked in the beginning. She was not good to begin with, but John made her worse. I truly think that John was trying to save everybody by intentionally hiding and botching the process. I think Anastasia almost had it and John stopped them on purpose. I'm pretty sure that's a widely accepted thing. But I think he did it as a mercy and as a way to save not just them from whatever would happen, but also the entire universe, all of the other lictors as well. So I think that if anybody actually pulls off perfect Lyctorhood, whether it be the Tridentari or Gideon and Harrow or Cam and Pal, it's going to be monstrous and horrifying. Speaking of monstrous, I think that the resurrection was monstrous and that we're gonna watch this super horrific account of things happen. We know already that John did something to kill everybody and then he resurrected them, and we know it was some sort of bomb based on what Wake asks him. But John also has said that he ate human 10,000 years ago and that he didn't want to do it again. Now sure, he could be referring to having to do some sort of cannibalism with Alecto to achieve Lyctorhood, but I don't know, we've been pretty explicit already about the fact that Alecto isn't human, so what human was John eating 10,000 years ago? So with the poem that was released we agonized over that for a long time, and I agonized over it for a long time. And ultimately, what I've come away with is that it is Alecto remembering John, putting her into the tomb, into the coffin. There's been a lot of speculation about the poem, and like rightfully so. I have been avoiding like pretty much any spoilers from people who have read the book. I've only been reading the official releases and leaks, not any sort of spoiler-filled reviews or discussions, so I don't know if there are more poems, and if there are, I'm a little bit scared, quite frankly. The wording of the poem aligns kind of closely to how John explains everyone hiding in the Mithram. They go to the Mithram to run away from everything that they love, to wait for the resurrection beast to find them there, in the same way that the poem takes a similar tone of when everybody we loved has gone or fled. The tone of the poem also changes with what I think is the tonal shift of John. Like, at the beginning of the book, of Harrow, he goes from like, hey, I'm just John Gaius, I'm just some guy, I'm kind of funny, kind of goofy, quirky. And then at the end of Harrow, he like, you know, resurrects himself out of thin air and is like a dick. Like, he just got murdered, but still, he was a dick. So I think that the tone of the speaker talking to the poet is similar to how John was speaking at the end of that chapter. And there's something, like, stupidly and horrifyingly, like, the poet is recounting being put down and put to sleep in this box, and all they can think of at the end is, you held aloft the sword, I still love you. Like, my main prediction for this book, actually, is that it's going to kill me with whatever the hell John and Alecto have going on. With that, let's have a lighter theory for Nona. I think that John's going to show up for, like, fun dad activities at, like, Nona's birthday party. So, like, in the final chapters of Harrow, he's making everyone choose sides, right? And he's not going to make Gideon/Harrow choose a side because he doesn't think it's fair to punish Harrow for, like, not being here and not being in control of her body. Like, she didn't do anything. But also, with Gideon, he's like, you know, I barely had a time to be a dad. I didn't take you to your school dance or buy you chips or anything. And so, I don't know. I think he's gonna, like, try to pull this off because Nona is Gideon. Maybe. This is the theory I'm shakiest on, but, like, I have to make a prediction about who Nona is because we all have to make a prediction about who Nona is. And I'm predicting that she's Gideon. Maybe. Like, I'll be honest. I'll admit it. I really don't know who Nona is. Like, I know that that's Harrow's body, but I don't know who's in control of it. So, out of all the options that we've been given, with the limited knowledge we have of this book and the theories that, you know, we've gone over, I personally think that it's Gideon in Harrow's body without any memories. Right now, I only have 2 pieces of evidence to back up this prediction. Number 1, most obviously, Gideon was the last person to be in Harrow's body, so, like, you know, her soul's there. If it isn't there, where is it, right? Number 2, from the official excerpts that we've seen of Nona, we know that Nona sees a body just sitting and watching her. And we just went through my entire theory about why I'm convinced that Gideon is the body, so I think this might be a little switcheroony happening, where it's now Harrow's presence following Gideon around. So the old spade and switch, the old 1-2. But there's another chance for a switcheroony. So earlier when I was talking, I mentioned John 28, where John is talking to Harrow, and how I think that that's actually Alecto. Well, if Alecto is using Harrow's name to talk to John, maybe she's also using Harrow's body to just exist, and maybe that's where Alecto is hiding at the moment. Quite frankly, I will have no problem admitting that I'm wrong about it being Gideon and it actually being Alecto, but oh my god, am I terrified of it being Alecto. Alright, let's talk a little bit about, even further out, past Nona, let's talk about Alecto predictions. Now, with Alecto, we have even less to work with. Like I said at the top, we are going to be working with the singular excerpt that Tamsin Moyer gave out over the summer, and then some spoilers without context that she's given fans. So theory number 1 for Alecto is that the wedding is going to be between Harrow and Ianthe. I love this. I love this because I love Ianthe. I love this because I love her dynamic with Harrow. And I love this because I love mess first and foremost, and this is the messiest option for a wedding in that book. For everyone unaware, Tamsin Moyer signed a book and somebody asked for a spoiler without context. And one of the ones she gave was, there's a wedding in number 4. So there's going to be a wedding in Alecto the Ninth. And I think it's going to be between Harrow and Ianthe. So for the work, Harrow made some sort of deal with Ianthe and doesn't disclose to current Harrow what that deal is. Ianthe can't tell Harrow. It's somewhere buried under here, and I'm afraid of this falling, so we're not going to mess with it anymore. The deal extends to Harrow's death, and then she's freed from it, aka, like, till death do we part in wedding vows. Ianthe says that when she's going to call in that deal, she will ask. Think, asking somebody to marry you. In the Epiparados, Ianthe goes to speak to a man about a queen, and I think she's going to talk to John about Harrow, because John is a man who became God and a God who became man, and Ianthe, along with Coronabeth, is a princess. So, she will become queen, and therefore any woman she marries could feasibly become a queen as well. Next up, I don't think that Harrow is actually in hell, but I do think that we are going to see hell, and I think we're going to see all of the characters who are supposedly trapped forever in hell. Listen, the Harrow in Hell excerpt of Alecto makes me, as somebody who both loves and hates Dante Alighieri and Inferno, just so over the moon excited. So I don't think that Harrow's actually in hell. I think that she's in the same place where Gideon was, in that compartment like I went over previously, and Gideon clearly was not in hell. There has been so much discussion about hell and the river and what's beyond the river, and how John can't see hell and nobody knows what goes beyond the river, and Abigail deciding, like, we're gonna go do it, that it would be a waste not to go and follow through and see what's there. And maybe we're gonna meet all the characters who have fallen into black holes, or who have gone into the stoma, or who have just jumped into the river never to be seen again. Maybe this is where we see them. In hell. What's my endgame for the Tridentari? I think they're going to kill each other in Alecto. Like, okay. I said earlier that I think that Ianthe is going to attempt perfect Lyctorhood. And maybe there's a chance that they do attempt perfect Lyctorhood. Like, she gets Coronabeth on board and they do it and it fails horribly, and you know, that's the reason why John didn't want anyone to try to be a lictor, or at least a perfect lictor. But at the same time, if Coronabeth is with BOE, which we know she is, and that she's like climbing up the ranks, then maybe she's going to try to take down Ianthe, a lictor who, you know, she now morally has to fight against. Tamsin has said that Coronabeth is the worst twin, but why and how? What could she possibly do to be worse than Ianthe? My meow meow. I just can't see there being any end for these awful twins except at each other's hands. So mark my words. I have no way to know this, but I know that if they die, it's going to be because of each other. And finally, my final prediction for Alecto and for the series as a whole is perhaps the most far-fetched, but it's the one I have to believe in most. I have to believe that there's a happy ending for Gideon and Harrow. They have been through so much. Like, just over the course of the 2 books, they've been through a lot, but also, like, in their lives, they've been through a lot, and they finally reached some point of understanding each other and admitting they care about each other, and then they don't get to live that out, and they have to, right? Like, they have to have some sort of happy ending. Like, I need that. We need that. All of us. That indescribable feeling. When the lights begin to dim, and we go somewhere we've never been before. Not just entertain. I'm sorry. I love the Nicole Kidman AMC ad. I learned it by osmosis. I had to put it in. I'm sorry, okay? Alright, so those are my Nona/Alecto predictions and theories, and honestly, who knows if any of these are going to be right. Like, I don't know, 9 days from now, I could be in a puddle of my own tears completely wrong, and I will thank Tamsin Moyer for it. Look at my wall. Who knows what my wall will look like in any sort of upcoming content I film. I want to do a quick bonus round, though, of what memes I think are going to be involved. Like, I don't have any sort of visual to put on the wall about the memes, but I want to talk about the memes, okay? I think that there's going to be some reference to the Mishapocalypse. Like, if we're going to be in Nona talking about the end of the world and the apocalypse that John caused, I think that we should talk about the Mishapocalypse. Like, I know Tamsin Moyer was on Tumblr during that time, so let's talk about the Mishapocalypse. I think we're going to get a joke about the Down with Cis bus. I don't know if we're going to get a joke related to the bus or the phrase Down with Cis, but I want it. I want a Down with Cis bus joke. I will scream if we get a reference to, I made you a cookie, but I eated it. Or rawr means I love you in dinosaur. Something in that realm of like that early Hot Topic, like 20 teens kind of thing. I think we could get it. Now, I know there's been some discourse recently about the Locked Tomb and Homestuck, and I'm throwing my hat into the ring here for a second. It's not Homestuck fanfiction. There's a difference between, like, a piece of work being originally a fanfiction of something, a piece of work being inspired by a piece of another fiction, or another piece of fiction influencing a work. And the Locked Tomb falls into the category of it being influenced by Homestuck. Like, if you, like me, read Homestuck, first of all, you might be entitled to financial compensation, but second of all, you can see the influence of Homestuck on these books. And because there is Homestuck influence, I think that we are going to get at some point just a direct reference to Homestuck or a direct Homestuck meme put into these books. So I have 3 that could possibly show up. I think that we could get a joke about buckets. I think we might get a reference to the iconic Sir, we are under siege by planet Jupiter. It feels correct, especially with the resurrection beast being the ghost of the solar system. Like, quite literally, they could be under siege by planet Jupiter. And finally, I think we might get the line, Rose, what's wrong with this picture? Like, obviously we won't say Rose, but what's wrong with this picture? It could happen, okay? Those are my 3. That's my wish list. I'm calling dibs. I'm calling dibs in this moment. So we did it. We made it through my Nona/Alecto predictions, theories, ramblings. I'm really excited about this book. Like, I don't know if I've ever been this excited about a book's release, like, ever, and that's really cool. And obviously, I wish that the fandom were active on Tumblr, but sadly, Tumblr is gone. And if you're still on Tumblr and you're about to comment, like, actually, like, I'm sorry. Do I think I'm going to make a Nona recap? I don't know. Like, honestly, I didn't think I would do this. I don't want to make this channel just a Locked Tomb channel. Which brings me to the final part of the video. I have ideas. I have video essays that I'm cooking up, that I'm actively writing, now that I've invested in some equipment and that I, kind of want to commit to doing this. Hopefully you will see more content from me that isn't just Locked Tomb centric, but that is centered on things like performance theory and fandom stuff and just whatever the hell I want to talk about. I have a few ideas that I'm pretty excited to actually develop out, so you'll see those, and I don't know if you'll see a Nona recap or if you will see some like insane 3-hour like pre-Alecto recap like next year, where I essentially redo my first video with, a whole other book attached to it. We will see. I'm not making any promises, but if you're interested in things like fandom studies, fandom theory, fandom history, discussing performance studies, by all means stick around. You'll see me again, but otherwise, thank you so much for watching this. I hope that you had some theories that you agreed with or maybe you disagreed with, and I hope that we will get to talk soon. Everyone has been so nice since I started this channel. To whoever commented and said that I was the manic goth dream girl, thank you. I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to live up to that aesthetic in this video. I suppose I am now the manic lavender dream girl, but hey, it was still a nice compliment. So thank you all so much. I will catch you next time. Again, you can follow me on Twitter if you want. You can subscribe, but no obligations here.